Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to allow a few minutes to have more people joining. We understand sometimes there are connecting issues, so bear with us. We should begin in the next couple of minutes. Thank you very much. I think we are good to start. Hello and welcome to today's ARSO ASTM stakeholder workshop on medicinal cannabis production certification in Africa. Let me just get the camera. Thank you all for taking time to be here today. My name is Maria Givaraj. I'm a manager for global cooperation and training at ASTM International. I am your host and your moderator, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 hours or so that we'll have together. Before I begin with the proceedings, I would like to send a big thanks to the African Organization to Standardization, ARSO, for teaming up with us today for this very important event. We have a great lineup of speakers, 5 in total, who will discuss various aspects of ASTM International work on the cannabis hemp industry while attempting to offer standards and certification solutions for the medicinal cannabis and hemp industry in Africa. Just to set the scene, this workshop is a follow-up from a similar workshop that we held exactly 6 months ago, specifically on August 17th, 2001. In that seminar or workshop, we learned about the progress made and the challenge faced by major cannabis growing and export countries in Africa, including Lesotho, South Africa, and also from ARSO's work on medicinal plant standards and conformity assessment issues. Before today, ASTM and ARSO CACO, which stands for the Conformity Assessment Committee experts, met several times and agreed to host today's event. I look forward to our discussion about this topic and subtopics, and I hope this is a beneficial event for all of you, all in audience and the stakeholders also in the audience. Attendees will be in a listen mode only during the webinar, the workshop. So please use the chat feature at the bottom of the screen to send your questions during the presentation and throughout the entire event. Please also note that interpretation from English to French is available by selecting the interpretation button also at the bottom of your screen. A recorded version of this event, as well as the PowerPoint slides, will be made available to you in the next day or so. At the end of each presentation, we will pause to answer any questions that may have come through the chat. Without any further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Emogene Sengemana, ARSO Secretary General since 2012, to start us off with his key address. Dr. Sengemana is a well-known figure in the standards development world, and this is backed by his 20+ years of service to Africa, half of which in leadership positions, and with a long-standing and clear track record and ability to deliver results. His specific areas of expertise include corporate governance, strategic planning and execution, trade and economic policy analysis and implementation, with a bias towards African economic and trade policy agenda. Dr. Emogene, I'm very pleased to give you the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. I hope you get me. I saw that my internet is unstable a little bit. Do you get me clearly?
Yes, I do. I can hear you properly.
Oh, thank you very much. Just say good morning for those who are in the morning. Good afternoon, everyone. As Maria said, this is a second webinar on the subject on cannabis. Last time we discussed a lot on what is happening on our continent. I would like just to put in a few words toward this webinar. As you all know, we started implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement last year. We expect to have a market of 1.3 billion on the continent. But when you look at the benefits for this AFCFTA agreement, we usually ask ourselves that the small economies, countries, how are they going to benefit on this agreement? It's very important that we start looking at the competitive advantage. That's one of the key examples in this area is the work being done by Lesotho, the work being done in Eswatini, in Malawi, using the benefits of trade on cannabis to increase their GDP. It's very important to look at this competitive advantage. While looking at the competitive advantage, we should not ignore that the issue of cannabis is very tricky. It's very tricky because of ethics, because of religion in some countries, and actually in some countries on our continent, the cultivation and growing cannabis is allowed, but without any regulation, without registration, meaning you just blindly allow it, but you don't have regulation and registration. This is a point to be addressed, to see cannabis as any other industry, mainly because it's medicinal property. But we also know that we shouldn't just say and that should be regulated because of medicinal property. Studies are showing that by 2023, Africa will be having a value market of $7.1 billion, only 0.8 coming from the medicinal industry, 6.3 coming from recreation. That's where the issue comes from. That's where the countries, the governments are probably thinking about how can we enter this industry, but while we protect people on abuse, or not falling in another way of having a population that is under cannabis abuse. We can only do that if we develop different standards. I think the discussion today on standard should not only be on the side of the product standards. We should also think about the ethics. What can we do? Which standard available probably can be guiding the government is not abused. I would urge the speakers, I would urge to think really in that area, because we don't give trust to our governments, we will not be able actually to benefit on this industry. Our collaboration with STM is in that area. We focus on different area, but in the recent years, within our committee, the technical committee 78, on medical devices and equipment, and technical committee TC80 on pharmaceutical and medicinal products. We collaborated a lot where the TC70 on the medical devices actually adopted 7 standard from the ASTM standard, and the TC8 on pharmaceutical actually adopted 12 standard from ASTM. I am looking forward to see more work done in the future on this subject matter on the cannabis. I thank you, Maria. I thank all the speakers. I would like to follow through the discussion, and wish all of us a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Imogen, for such a powerful keynote address. I think you touched on very important points, and I myself join you in urge the speakers and everybody in the audience to think about the issues that you raised as we move forward. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Jimmy Farrell, ASTM Staff Manager at Technical Committee Operations. And this is a role that Jimmy, as we call him, has held for 5.5 years. In his role, Jimmy has direct responsibility to the standards development activities of 6 ASTM technical committees, including D37 on cannabis, CO4 on vitrified clay pipe, C13 on concrete pipe, and F36 on technology and underground utilities, D10 on packaging, and F2 on primary barrier packaging. And finally, C28 on advanced ceramics. Jimmy, please, the floor is yours to share the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you everybody for having us today. We're very excited to present and look forward to any good discussion that would follow up afterwards. So let me share my screen. Are you seeing the presentation, Maria?
Yes, Jimmy,
Okay.
I can see.
Thank you.
I see you present. Thank you very much.
All right, so the first part, we're actually going to show a video to get us kicked off here. Oh, maybe we won't. Give me 1 second. Sorry about this. I always have trouble with videos in PowerPoint, but I had it queued up on the website. So ASTM has a microsite for our cannabis activity. It's astmcannabis.org. Feel free to check it out, and you'd be able to see videos like the one that I'm about to share. I just want to make sure that I'm sharing sound. And
at ASTM International, cannabis experts from all over the world are working together to help advance the safety, manufacturing, and quality of cannabis and hemp. From standards and proficiency testing to training and certification, ASTM can help you develop a comprehensive plan to manage your cannabis operations. Ensure you're using the latest cannabis and hemp safety standards developed by our Committee D37 on cannabis. These industry-leading test methods, specifications, guides, and best practices address topics such as processing and handling, lab testing and operations, security and transportations, industrial hemp, cannabis devices and appliances, and overall product quality. Learn how to improve your products and processes with training and e-learning courses taught by top industry stakeholders who help write our standards. Evaluate and improve your lab's procedures and meet safety regulations with unique proficiency testing programs that reflect real-world processes. Establish and maintain good manufacturing and agricultural practices and reduce risks with third-party certification. Use our 360-degree approach to let regulators, consumers, and customers know that your systems, products, and facilities adhere to the top safety standards in the world. Get started today. Visit www.astmcannabis.org.
All right. So I hope that the sound did work, because on my end, I actually couldn't hear the presentation, but it's a nice little video. If it didn't work, like I said, we can post that website in the chat for you to check out on your own time, but I'll get started here with the actual meat of the presentation, for which I have been brought here to talk about. So today, across all of the presenters from ASTM, you're going to understand the benefits for participating in our memorandum of understanding. I'm going to go over the development of standards for the cannabis and hemp industry that is taking place within Committee D37. There's going to be a training discussion as well as a laboratory proficiency discussion, and we're going to wrap up with the certification programs related to cannabis that ASTM and our affiliate SEI have to offer. So let's give you a high-level view for those who may not be familiar with who exactly ASTM International is. And we have been in operation since 1898 as an international standards developer, and today we are one of the world's largest international standards developers. We have more than 30,000 members that participate in our technical committees and the process for development of standards that represent 154 countries. We have 148 main committees and over 2,000 subcommittees that cover about 90 industry sectors. So these main committees, you've heard me say now a couple of times, D37 on cannabis, that is a main committee. And we have 147 other main committees doing standards work, from children's toys to petroleum and fuel standards to airplanes. And as Maria listed some of my other committees that I manage, we have packaging and infrastructure like concrete pipe and really everything in between. So we like to say that we touch every part of your daily life with those 148 committees. And the reason that it indicates that it's 90 industry sectors is because you can have some main committees that are in the same industry sector, but they themselves have been broken out into their own groups, which the example there was D10 on packaging, and then F2, which is primary barrier packaging. So you could think of a box or a crate or a shipping container with D10, but then F2, if you have a medical device or something that has been sealed and there is a microbial barrier protecting whatever is inside of that package, that would be the content of standards being developed under Committee F2, but they both fall under the one industry sector that is kind of an overarching packaging interest. But we do have, across all those committees, over 12,800 standards, and they are utilized globally in that 45% of the standards that are being used within industry those users are outside of the United States. So we might be based in the United States, but we operate at a very global level. But now let's talk about what we're actually here to talk about, which is Committee D37 on cannabis. So a few years ago, back in 2015, we received a request from a medical cannabis cultivator for standards, and really a committee to develop standards in the world of cultivation. They had entered into the medical cannabis cultivation sector and were noticing that there was not any sort of guidance document to guarantee a consistent, safe or quality product, and that even the process by which things are done was not standardized. And they saw a value in having those standards. They knew of ASTM, so they brought this proposal forward. And from that time, ASTM began its due diligence, where we analyzed the type of standards that could be created. We found industry stakeholders to understand who would be participating, and ultimately held meetings to gain support for this activity. And what they did was they came up with a scope, and the scope is broad, but it's maybe intentionally broad because really, with not a lot of consistent standards activity yet in an emerging area, we wanted to be sure that items that were coming forward to Committee D37 would have a place to be developed if there was an interest or an expertise. So the scope of the committee shall be the development and maintenance of standards and guidance materials for cannabis and its products and processes. And ultimately, in 2017, the ASTM Board of Directors approved the formation of D37 on cannabis. And at that time, they had a total of 60 members from 14 countries. And the 14 countries is pretty impressive for only 60 members, but it was still a small collection of people that were there at the very start. And then if you fast forward to today, there are more than 1,100 members representing 36 countries on Committee D37. And to put it in perspective, in just 5 years' time, this committee is, I believe, either the third or fourth largest committee in ASTM. So of those 148 other committees, in only 5 years, they've become this large, and they rival committees that have been around for more than 100 years. So there is a very large interest and participation, and the people that are participating are coming from all over the industry. Here on the right-hand side of the slide, you see who these participants actually are. You know, associations that are bringing their constituents in to help develop new standards. Academia and understanding a path forward for getting people into a new industry like cannabis, where there isn't a traditional structure for education. People who work in laboratories, the actual cultivators or farmers themselves, government entities that are seeking guidance or giving the committee awareness of issues that they are seeing to help guide our standards development. And then you have other participants, people involved in transportation and security and software providers and really everybody in between. So you'll see that I have here that the title of the committee, as we know, is Cannabis, and that is D37 on cannabis. And it's sort of this umbrella or overarching focus for what is then the more specific technical work that happens at a subcommittee level. So in ASTM, you have a main committee that addresses a larger topic, and then the actual focused work happens at a subcommittee level. And these are all the subcommittees that D37 currently has established and are working on. And what I'm going to do over the next couple of slides is I'm going to go through in more detail exactly what these subcommittees are. And I'm going to give you an example of the work that they are producing so that you have an understanding of just how broad this topic of cannabis is in the world of people coming in to develop standards. And it's not just limited to even what you're going to see here today. So we'll start off with the first one, which was, again, the reason why we started at ASTM to first investigate starting this committee, which is indoor and outdoor horticulture and agriculture. So growing of the cannabis plant, whether it be outside or inside. And this subcommittee has one published standard under its jurisdiction, and there are currently 2 standards that are under development. So what you'll also hear these standards under development called are work items or work items for new standards. And that's where a smaller task group is getting together and creating these standard documents that then go through ASTM's balloting process, and they become that published standard. So under this subcommittee related to horticulture and agriculture or growing, you have the one published standard, which is D8219. So that's our designation, so you can find the standard. And the title is that it's the standard guide for cleaning and disinfection at a cannabis cultivation center. And to give you an idea of the content of that, the scope of this document is to provide a collection of information and a range of options for cleaning and disinfecting a cannabis cultivation center, including prevention of hazards such as disease, pets, and contamination. So that's to give you an idea of what has already been developed, and understanding the scope of the subcommittee. You see the potential for other documents, either describing a good practice, a guidance, maybe a specific way of doing it, but that's currently what they're working on. Then when we move down to D3702 for quality management systems, which is exactly kind of how the title describes, it is standards for the quality management of cannabis products and processes. And so this subcommittee has had a bit more activity than the first one, where they have 6 standards that are now published, and they still have 5 more under development. And to pull out maybe I tried to grab what I thought was either the most impactful or the most explanatory standards from a particular subcommittee. So this next one here, D8222, which is the standard guide for establishing a quality management system for consumer use of cannabis and hemp products. So this is somebody getting into the industry and how to manage your actual facility. And the scope of this document, it focuses on the core elements of an effective quality management system necessary to optimize consumer and product safety, product quality, and conformance with requirements from industry, governmental agencies, and other authorities having jurisdiction. And this guide incorporates basic quality principles, guidelines, and industry best practices needed to establish a quality management system adaptable to all organizations. So somebody interested in this standard would be purchasing it and utilizing it to help set them up for a successful launch into the industry. So moving along, Committee D3703 is the laboratory subcommittee. And really what this committee is ultimately going to be producing are test methods. And as was described in our opening remarks, there is some difficulty based off of regulations surrounding the plant in being able to transport or ship or even bring into a certain area samples for testing. And when you have that difficulty, it just puts a little bit of extra time on the development of test method standards. So you see that they have 4 published standards. Right now, none of those 4 standards are test methods. They are guides and practices, but there are 15 standards under development and some that are actually getting pretty close to being approved. And those are mostly test methods for making sure that whatever process or end product the standard is addressing, that there is a consistent result, that the result of the process is both repeatable and reproducible. So that's either you can repeat it in your own lab successfully, or one lab can do it the same way that another lab is able to do it. And what they've worked on so far, you know, these 4 published standards are kind of building up to what will ultimately be a test method. So when you look at D8334, which is the practice for sampling of cannabis/hemp post-harvest batches for laboratory analysis, essentially that's preparing whatever this sample of the plant is for then what would be used in a test method. So the scope would be cannabis harvested materials require sampling strategies throughout their life cycle from cultivation to the end consumer. For the purposes of this standard, the term cannabis is inclusive of all cannabis, including hemp varieties. The qualitative and quantitative characteristics of cannabis for human or animal consumption has safety implications throughout the life cycle from cultivation to end consumer, and this practice provides procedures and protocols for sampling batches of harvested cannabis. So creating samples of what was grown to be tested for whatever use it's going to be. And that way we have a consistent way of getting a sample that can then be used for, like I said, ultimately these test methods that are on the horizon of being developed. The next subcommittee, you're actually going to get to see 2 standards, but first I will talk about its scope of processing and handling. So the development and maintenance of standards for processing and handling of cannabis includes, but is not limited to, extraction, edible manufacturing, packaging, and labeling. So this scope of the subcommittee is a little broader in that it could be the actual processing of the plant, creating an extraction or an edible, but it could also be related to, you then are putting it into something, a child-resistant package, or even labeling that for transport or even end use. And so this subcommittee, 6 published standards and 12 under development, so a lot of activity in this area. One of the more impactful standards and one of the early or first standards of D37, D8196, was the standard practice for the determination of water activity in cannabis flower. So you don't want the flower to either be too dry or too moist. So this practice was determining that water activity to keep it in the most optimal environment. And then if I were to, look at the scope to maybe describe it a bit more succinctly, they very briefly define the scope as this practice covers the recommended procedure for determining the water activity of a cannabis flower sample. But the most recently, I don't know if you can see it because of this. There we go. The most recently approved, but not yet published standard under D3704 is the standard specification for an international symbol for identifying consumer products containing intoxicating cannabinoids. So essentially, these committee members got together to ballot and approve this symbol as what they think should be put on a package or a label to identify a product containing intoxicating cannabinoids. And ASTM standards are voluntarily developed, so they got together to voluntarily create this document and as well as this image. And then they're also voluntarily adopted. So it is an international standard. It's going through our editorial process before publication as we speak. And the hope from the committee is that this will be adopted by people within industry, but also maybe regulators or government entities. And it's something that they're very excited about. They are looking to hopefully do talks like this on it and gain support and traction for it. But to give you an idea of the scope and the significance and use of the document, I posted them here for you to be able to review as the standard comes out. And as Maria indicated, you'll be receiving a copy of the presentation. So on to the next subcommittee, D3705, which is our Security and Transportation Subcommittee, which they handle standards related to the security of cannabis facilities, products, and materials, as well as transporting of cannabis product and materials that include but are not limited to technical security, physical security, personnel, transportation, and procedural security. So they really, from you could think of from farm to store, they're covering security standards in the cannabis area, because particularly in countries where it is becoming legal and there is still an element of maybe illegality to it, there is issues with security that need to be addressed. So they have 4 published standards. They have 1 other standard that's under development that is getting close to going into the balloting process. And this guide, so the guide for intrusion detection system, covers the recommended intrusion detection system for protecting resin cannabis products, as well as currency, people, property, and assets. So that kind of gives you an idea as to what they're working on in that space. D3706, which is personnel training, assessment, and credentialing. They have 4 published standards with 4 more that are under development, and they are working on the knowledge and skill requirements for either educating, training, or assessing and credentialing of personnel in all facets of the cannabis industry. So they're creating documents for how you certify somebody doing some process in the industry. Maybe it is certifying a farmer or a grower. Maybe it's certifying somebody working with extraction, or even certifying lab people for whether it be the quality management or any sort of training related to it. And the standard that I pulled out there was D8403, which was the standard practice for certificate programs within the cannabis and hemp industries. And that scope outlines that the practice provides protocols to certificate issuers for developing and administering certificate programs for stakeholders within the cannabis and hemp industries for determining best practices for administering professional or procedural certificate programs within industries. So kind of setting up this base for the ability to credential people or provide a certification that somebody has achieved. I left D3791, which is the terminology subcommittee, on the slide accidentally, so I will get to that in a future slide. D3707, which is the industrial hemp subcommittee, has a lot of activity as well. Their scope, the development and maintenance of international standards for industry hemp, including but not limited to hemp seed, hempcrete, and hemp fiber. So really all parts of the hemp plant and how it could be used, whether it is for human or animal consumption. It could be used in construction materials or the textile industry when we think about fiber used to manufacture clothing or a blanket, anything like that. So they recently published their first 2 standards, and there are 12 more that are under development. And if we look at one of the 2 that was published, Standard Guide for Assessing Spoilage of Hemp Seed Intended for Human Consumption, this guide covers the recommended steps for a visual assessment of spoilage in hemp seed intended for human consumption. Additional recognized laboratory tests can be completed as necessary to augment this guide. So it's making sure seeds that are supposed to go out to the consumer to be consumed somehow, eaten probably, are not spoiled. D3708, which is cannabis devices and appliances. You can think of any device in the industry, but probably most often associated with vaping devices. But we could think of lighting in relation to like an indoor growing operation, or if there's any sort of irrigation system that's utilized on an indoor growing operation, those could also be devices or appliances. But really what they have started their work on is vaping or vaporizer devices for cannabis. So they have 6 published standards. They're still working on 2 more, and there's going to be more to come. But this first one, D8372, which is the guide for cannabis/hemp extract vaporizers, which is intended to define characteristics, functions, and technologies commonly present in cannabis and hemp vaporizers. One of the other things that this subcommittee is focusing on in relation with vaporizers is understanding any implications of heavy metal contaminants, whether it be in the metals used in the vaping device or any metals that are in the actual extract itself that are then being superheated in this vaping device. So there's a lot of important work that's happening under this devices and appliances subcommittee to ensure safety within the industry. And then here is that terminology subcommittee again. Like I said, I accidentally had left it on that other screen when I was preparing the slides, but they only have one published standard, because when you think of terminology, you just have one document that sort of encapsulates all of the terminology relating to the committee's work. This might break off into other more focused terminology documents, but for right now, they have one overarching standard terminology relating to cannabis. And while they only have one published standard and they don't have any new standards proposed, what happens with ASTM standards is they are living documents. So once they are created, that is not the final form that they will be in. They will receive revisions and different types of approvals throughout their life cycle. And right now, they have a large list of terms, but there are many proposed additions to that standard, which is either adding or editing terms that already exist. So that kind of shows what happened between the start of the committee in 2017 through today, where they have 34 approved standards in these first 5 years, with a lot more coming. And they continue to build their membership. The membership is reflective of industry stakeholders and their interests, as well as establishing new subcommittees. We've done global outreach in person more before the pandemic, and now more virtual outreaches like we have today. And we're engaging across the world. So what's happening now? What are the new things that are happening in Committee D37? And that is, there's more work coming in. The most recent subcommittee, technical subcommittee that was formed, is D3709 on sustainability. So they're looking at sustainability in relation to the cannabis industry. And that was formed just back last month in January. And they already have one standard under development. They have a new proposed standard for waste management of a cannabis cultivation facility. So getting rid of the actual plants themselves in a sustainable way, but also any waste that's associated with the facility itself. And then they have two subcommittees that were formed recently on government liaison, which is to facilitate any dialogue from a regulatory standpoint of the cannabis industry, and how the standards that this committee produces can affect and influence regulatory actions. So it's an administrative subcommittee in that regulators could come to the group to indicate issues that they're having where they would see a benefit for standardization, or the regulators could come and see exactly what is being produced from the committee and determine its relevancy for whatever they might be seeking. And they can also provide their input on the standards development. And then D37 formed a subcommittee on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which its goal is to make sure that our stakeholders in D37 do represent a diverse set of interests and focus, as well as bringing any voices to the table that might not know that they can participate. So ASTM, since its formation, has been open to anyone with an interest or an expertise to participate on the committee. But we know that we're not always visible in all areas in terms of how open we are. So this subcommittee is focusing on the efforts of the committee, making sure that what is being developed is not any way exclusionary, but also engaging stakeholders that might not know they could participate within the ASTM process, and everybody can participate in the ASTM process. So the standards that are in development that I had mentioned as coming soon, there is hemp standards that are coming down the pike, particularly related to hemp fiber, as well as the hempcrete. These vocational standards, as well as packaging and labeling, test methods for the analysis of pesticides and trace element contamination for residual solvents. And like I said, this standard guide for waste disposal plan for the cannabis industry. And the last slide, well, I have a few more, but the last slide about the committee activity here is how do people participate on the committee? So you join and, you know, you might not be familiar with the activities that are going on, or you're in a largely different time zone than some of the other participants. ASTM has a member portal called the My Committees page, where once you are a part of the committee, you join up, you sign up as a member, and you join D37, you have access to the documents that are being balloted, as well as lists of standards that have been approved, understanding when the next meetings are going to take place, what the minutes and agendas of those meetings were. You even have access to the roster to search for individual members. And then there's our online balloting platform, which allows anybody to participate while a ballot is open at whatever time that they are available to do so. So we have this last slide here, our cannabis program's 360-degree approach, and my portion of it as the staff manager for Committee D37 is this standards development. And once those standards are developed, it feeds up into the other services that ASTM has the ability to provide, like training or proficiency testing, certification, and then also sales and marketing solutions. So it's this holistic look at the industry as a whole that starts from standards development and feeds its way up to touching all parts of the industry. And with that, I will thank you. And I believe that I am now passing it over to Athena for the next part of our 360-degree approach.
Thank you very much, Jimmy, for such a insightful presentation, and the video, which you start with the video, which was a very good video to show to our audience. And by the way, we have over 120 participants today. I am very grateful and thankful for that. And I also appreciate the fact that you provided a brief overview of ASTM International. And most importantly, you gave us an in-depth overview of D37, which is our technical committee on cannabis. So before we hand over to Athena, I would like us to pause and share or ask you a couple of questions that came through the chat. There are actually quite a number of them, so we're going to try to do it at least in the next couple of minutes. The very first question is from our Secretary General from ARSO. And the question is, do you have countries from Africa participating in D37? That's the first question. The second question from one of the stakeholders from Nigeria is, does D37 on cannabis cover all products made from hemp plant, such as fibers and oil, or just medicine? So I'll leave those two questions for you, Jimmy, while I process the rest. Thank you.
Sure. So yes, there are members from African countries that are participating in the standards development. I can certainly work with you off of this training to identify them in case they're, part of ARSO, or you're looking to engage with them in ARSO. So yes, there are members on the committee. And then as far as the hemp standards, they have the ability to address anything that would come from the hemp plant, not just medicinal use. So I could look more specifically if you wanted to connect outside of this, if there is already a proposed standard for what you're thinking of, but if not, there is not a limit to what they were going to develop in terms of its applicability.
Thank you very much, Jimmy, for the answers. The next question is, how could we get the standard for international symbol intoxicating cannabinoids? That's the
Yep.
where the question ends.
So right now, the standard passed the ASTM balloting process and it is waiting to be published. So in short order, I'm hoping in the next maybe 2 weeks, it'll actually be published and available through ASTM.
Okay. The next question is, what is the difference between cannabis and hemp?
So you could get into probably a couple of arguments with people about the difference between cannabis and hemp. But if you look at the scientific explanation or the scientific name for hemp, it is technically Cannabis sativa L. But there is a distinction in the marketplace between cannabis as a potentially intoxicating plant, and then hemp, which has THC that is less than 0.3%. So there is a marketplace difference, even though technically it might be the same plant, but it is relating to the intoxicating cannabinoid of THC. And that's why there's a delineation for some of the standards.
Thank you, Jimmy. I have a couple of more questions. The next one is, can AEM 01 be compared with D3709?
I'm not
Maybe
familiar
Maria.
with go ahead.
Yes,
Yes,
Dr. Mujin,
Maria.
please. Mhm.
Yeah, AEM is a sustainability standard in agriculture under ECOMAC Africa, under ARSO,
Okay.
which is a general standard covering sustainability in agriculture. I guess the other one that Jimmy was talking about is specifically sustainability for cannabis.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr.
I
Sorry, go
imagine
ahead,
that
Jimmy.
that document would be very valuable to D3709, and I'd love to connect on that to see, about reviewing it with you if that's available, if you're willing to do that.
Thank you, Jimmy. And thank you, Dr. Mujin, for that clarification and that insight that some of us didn't have. So thank you. The next question for Jimmy is, who certifies the standard and how can one be qualified as a certifier?
So for those credentialing and standards under D3706, we do have programs, which we might learn about here a little bit later in the presentation. But then also it could be third-party certificate issuing groups. There's one in the United States through ANSI. It's called ANAB, and they issue certificates related to training. So sometimes ASTM will have a program related to this activity, in which case you'd be able to sign up for something like that, which we're going to learn about here in a little bit. And then other times it could be third-party certifiers. It just depends on who has the capability to do it.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm going to allow for 2 more questions. There's more that came, 2 to 3 more questions. There are more that came, but for the sake of time, we can leave the rest of the questions to the end. The next question is there a subcommittee solely for regulators?
So the government liaison subcommittee that they formed is not solely for regulators, but it is a forum for regulators to be able to participate and understand exactly what ASTM does and potentially weigh in on the content of standards development as far as sharing what they need. So it's not solely for regulators, but it is kind of giving a forum for regulators to understand how consensus standards could shape and help regulation.
Great, Jimmy, thank you. How easy is it to update the standards as the industry grows and develops?
So ASTM documents, like I stated, are living documents that once they are approved, they can be revised, and they can be revised at any time. So if there's new information or a better way of doing something, a better practice, then any member has the ability to come in and request a work item to make that change. And then the speed at which that change happens is determined by essentially the interest of the committee members. These committee members can be anybody. Anybody's welcome to come in. And if there is a large push from either the person working on this revision or the task group that is working on the revision, these changes can happen pretty quickly. If there's not a lot of interest, the change could take a little bit of time. And really, we let the industry determine that. ASTM doesn't push for something to happen sooner or faster. The industry is going to determine whether or not this needs to be incorporated or changed right away, or if it's something that can be added incrementally throughout the life of the standard, which, like I said, they are these living documents.
The last question is, are there specific labs where you carry out your standardization, or do you use university labs?
Yep. So we don't have any labs specifically at ASTM. You know, we work with laboratories for whatever use they may have. And I think that there's going to be more discussion on labs and how they are incorporated into ASTM work with some of the other presenters.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I think we had a very good set of questions. As I encouraged the audience to send their questions through the chat box. These questions may not all the questions may have been answered right now, but we will have more time towards the end of the program. So before we proceed, I want to thank Jimmy again for the presentation and for answering the questions. Now we'll move on to the next panelist, and that is Ms. Athena Haas, who is ASTM instructional designer with the Training and E-Learning Laboratory Service Department. As the instructional designer for ASTM, Athena leads the design and development of on-demand technical training based on ASTM standards. Her background is in public policy and instructional design, and she has worked in various roles involved in education over the past 15 years. Athena, the floor is yours. You may now share your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Give me a minute to share. Or Jimmy, were you going to keep it on yours?
Athena, Jimmy will run
Perfect.
the slides. I
Thank
think
you.
he's getting prepared. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I am Athena Huss. I am the instructional designer at ASTM, and I manage the e-learning program. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time to talk about our training programs. Jimmy, if you don't mind hitting my next slide. Thank you so much. So ASTM's training and on-demand solutions team provides technical training on ASTM standards. Our objective is simple. We work closely with industry stakeholders to design and implement learning experiences that aid learners in the comprehension and application of ASTM standards. We currently have over 450 courses available in numerous industries. Most of those are in e-learning courses, but we also have live training programs. Many of our courses are eligible for continuing education units for the learners who participate and pass the courses successfully. We currently have two primary programs in our training department, the live training program and the e-learning program. The live training program provides technical training led by industry experts, many of which are members of the technical committees that Jimmy just shared about. Those courses range from 1 to 5 days in length. They happen both in person or online through tools like Zoom or WebEx. For those online versions, we have the capability to host virtual courses with interpretation, much like the event that we're seeing today. Each course includes digital resources, case studies, and QA with our experts. The other types of training we offer are e-learning programs. These are consistent on-demand trainings using modern online training technology. They can be taken at the convenience of the learner on a computer or mobile device. There are full-length courses, micro-learning, and we're also piloting several interactive laboratory animations right now. Those courses are going to feature printable resources, technical video, and self-grading quizzes. You can see some of the different opportunities and things we offer on the slide in front of you. You can also see our capabilities. Our team has about, I think we calculated 150 years of experience between all of us. We do learning experience design, work with our media team to develop digital assets, and leverage industry experts to develop training that meet the needs of industry. Jimmy, I'd love the next slide. Thank you. A little bit more about our training program specifically based on the cannabis industry. Our training focuses for the cannabis and hemp industry, and our training is growing. We currently offer one live training program focused on corrective action, preventative action, and that is part of the quality management systems group of standards. It is offered in person online and takes about a half day. We also have several e-learning courses available. Each take about an hour to complete. The current courses are focused on water activity, quality management systems, and security. At this time, the catalog of e-learning is 8 courses, and we're continuing to collaborate with industry experts and D37 technical committee members to develop additional training. We are looking to develop more in the laboratory space over this year. And that's what I have for you folks. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Athena, for sharing with the audience ASTM training and on-demand solutions, particularly for the cannabis industry. I know it was a very short presentation, but I hope the audience have some questions for you. So we'll open the floor for some questions for Athena before we move on to the next panelist. I'm not seeing any questions for Athena, so I'm going to move on. If you have any questions for Athena, feel free to send them, and we'll address the questions towards the end or at the end of all the presentations. Our next ASTM panelist is Chris McCullough, General Manager for Program Development at the Laboratory Services Department. So here's a little bit about Chris. Chris has over 25 years of experience in laboratory operations, quality management systems, compliance, and ethics for the two of the world's largest testing, inspection, and certification organizations. In other words, Intertek and Bureau Veritas, names that you may be familiar with for those folks very involved in the lab, issues work. His specific areas of expertise include quality management systems, auditing, proficiency testing, statistical quality control, and system design, particularly in the commodities testing sector, namely petroleum, metals and minerals, and agricultural commodities. These are just some examples. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Chris to share his presentation with us. Thank you very much. Chris, I think you're muted.
Yep, no, I just got access.
Thank you
Hello.
very much.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to do a run through of our proficiency test programs. So I'll start off generic, covering what they are and what tools we have in place for them. And then I'll get specific into our cannabis proficiency test program. So for those that are not yet familiar with what a proficiency test program is, essentially it is a quality control tool which is utilized to assess laboratory performance. It's open to all labs, regardless of location. About 48% of our participating labs are international, including many from Africa. We have thousands of laboratory participants, and there is not a requisite to be a member of ASTM for enrolling in any of our proficiency test programs. They run all year, and we have, right now we have over 50 different proficiency test programs. Okay. Next slide, please. So in essence, this is how it works. We obtain a large amount of bulk material, we homogenize it, we place it into individual sample containers. So, and this may be 100, this may be 50, it may be 500. All of this material in each one of those containers is the same material. And we do what's called homogeneity testing to make sure that that is actually the case. Once that's done, then we send the samples out. So from a laboratory side, what they do is they receive the samples, that's step one. They perform whatever testing they're going to perform. In this case, it would be like cannabinoids, terpenes, water activity, pesticides, so on and so forth. They would then submit their data electronically in a system, which I'll cover here shortly. And then after about 20 to 25 business days, then we will issue a summary report, which includes the statistics so a laboratory can evaluate their performance, whether they were on the high side or the low side, whether they're consistently on the high side or consistently on the low side, etc. And they can use that to establish whether or not they've got any issues in the laboratory. Okay, if you do the next slide. So one thing I would like to point out is that our programs are 17043 accredited. Our accredited our accreditation body is a company called A2LA. This program for cannabis is new, and thus it is not yet ISO 17043 accredited, but it should be by the end of this year. Okay, next. So I'll do a quick walkthrough of this portal that we have, which is our IT system for managing this process. So first thing is that they log into the system. Each individual laboratory, and you can have as many of the users as you want for each laboratory, but users log in to the system and then they submit their data. Okay, could you go to the next line? So this is what the data entry form will typically look like for, in this case, this is a lubricants program. And so they would enter their data. It states what the test method was, what the units of measurements were, and what parameters being looked for. After they do that, then they can click save and continue, or they can finish and submit to ASTM. Okay, next line. Once all of that data is submitted, then there's this dashboard. This allows laboratories to see which data they've submitted, which data they haven't submitted. But it also, once the statistics are processed, then it allows the laboratory to see how they did. Just at a glance, they can see whether or not they performed well or not. Okay, could you click on next? So once we issue the final report, then there are multiple reports available. In this case, the report that's shown, or the graph that's shown from one of the reports is for an individual laboratory. And so this is a great tool for a laboratory because in this case, you can see that the laboratory can see that they probably got some issues here because they're really kind of on the high side on a very consistent basis. And so in all likelihood, this particular laboratory has an issue with system bias. So they've got some inherent bias in their testing, and thus this report would give them the information they need so that they know that they can investigate further. Okay, next slide. So this report is the actual PDF of the summary report, and it's inclusive of all laboratories. Each lab, you'll notice if you look at the table in front of you, on the left-hand side, there's the lab code. So laboratories are left as being anonymous. So we do not disclose which results belong to which laboratories. Of course, the laboratory knows their own lab code, but that information is not shared. So the participation is confidential. Okay. The report also contains several graphs within it so that a laboratory can see how they perform, but it's also useful from an industry standpoint. For example, on that bottom left-hand side, you can see there's what's called a box and whiskers graph. This is useful for comparing different methods for a particular test. So in this particular example, you can see that for sulfur, that some methods are actually more consistent than other methods, and some methods may even have a bias, so be higher or lower compared with other particular methods. This is useful for the committee, and it's also useful for just general interest, especially if you are in a position of deciding which methods to adopt. Okay, next slide. Okay, besides this, there are also custom company reports which can be downloaded from the system. And in this way, for organizations that have multiple laboratories, they can see how their laboratories compare against the general population of other participants. Next slide. And then there's also this same information, but just in numerical format. This allows a company to see if they've got a particular issue in one of their particular laboratories. It also allows them to see if they've got any issues for a given test. Next slide. So this next slide is what's called a method performance report. So this gives all the information of a particular test method in across different cycles. As I mentioned earlier, that our programs are continuous throughout the year. So most of our programs are 2 to 3 times a year. We do have several programs which are 12 times a year, monthly. And so this tool or this particular report gives insight on how that particular test method is performing from one cycle to the next. So this is very useful for people researching test methods and looking for specific materials that are at particular levels, especially for the sake of developing a reference material or something like that. Okay, next slide. Okay, now I'll get to the specifics of our hemp flower PTP, proficiency test program. So we have 3 cycles. Samples are issued in January, May, and September. It includes several tests, including cannabinoids, terpenes, pesticides, residual solvents, heavy metals, mycotoxins, moisture, and water activity. We just recently launched this. January was our first cycle, and I think now we're up to over 20 labs. That number of participant labs is expected to double or triple by the time of our next cycle, especially once we have our 17043 accreditation. Some of the things that set this particular Some of the things that set this program apart are that it includes real world materials, and they will be different from each cycle. We also do use these moisture control packages to maintain the moisture in the sample while it's being stored and even after it's been shipped. We have, and compared with a lot of the other programs out there, we're also priced very competitively. Okay, next. So for our program, the samples are actually prepared and distributed by NIST. We have what's called a research collaboration agreement with them. And so they are the ones that actually do all of our sample preparation and distribution. Yes, we can ship across state lines, and we can also ship internationally. The only exception to that is that we cannot ship to OFAC sanctioned nations. And in time, we will also be developing additional programs. So show up here some pictures of distillates as well as edibles. And so it's our plan that while we have started off with the hemp flower program, we will evolve into having other programs for this particular industry. And that's it. Next.
Thank you very much, Chris, for sharing your in-depth knowledge on laboratory operations and for providing an overview of ASTM proficiency testing programs. I will entertain one question, and that question is, let me quickly look at the question. Okay, the question is from Tanya, actually. It starts as this: couriers like DHL and FedEx won't carry cannabis samples from Africa. It's a regional problem, and they are not yet on the bandwagon since it's a company policy issue applied regionally. The question is, how can we get the samples to you from Africa? Can we lobby/combine forces with a certain courier company that can handle this type of product?
Yes, so for our program, we actually rely on NIST for this. So I am uncertain as to which exact courier they're using for the transportation of the high THC material to international organizations. But if you My email contact is right there on the screen. But if you want to email me, what I can do is I can connect you with NIST or make some inquiries and see if we can collaborate and try to investigate this further.
Thank you very much, Chris, for the answer. So our next panelist is Miss Tricia Hawk. She's the Director of Certification Operations for the Safety Equipment Institute, in short, SEI, an affiliate of ASTM International. Tricia has served at SEI for over 35 years as one of the world's leading independent third-party certification program providers. Using the most recognized comprehensive safety standards in the world, SEI administers third-party certification programs for public safety. Tricia is well qualified to work with SEI staff and ASTM to provide leadership and direction for the planning, development, and implementation of existing and new SEI certification programs. SEI currently hosts certification programs in the areas of fire and emergency services, sports and athletics, law enforcement, industrial and occupational personal protective equipment, and most recently, cannabis. SEI is also working to broaden their portfolio to certification programs in the areas of exotechnologies and additive manufacturing industries. Before I turn over to Tricia, I need to make a correction. Tricia has been with SEI for 11 years and not 35 years. 35 years is the time that SEI has been in existence. Thank you very much. Tricia, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you for that introduction, Maria. So I am going to be talking about the cannabis certification program that is specific to ASTM. So in 2021, we launched a pilot program, and we are offering certifications for facilities, for cultivators or growers, extractors and producers, and test laboratories. It is an ASTM International certification program, and it is SEI who is managing the program. SEI is a third-party certification organization, and we are accredited through ANAB or ANSI for ISO 17065. For the cannabis program, we have partnered with the GMP Collective. The GMP Collective is an active member of the ASTM D37 committee, and they are the ones who provide our auditors. They come with quality management and good management and laboratory practices. And the other part that makes them the reason why we partnered with them is because of their experience in the cannabis industry. So they bring a wealth of knowledge to the certification program. For the pilot program, we did partner with the Policy Center for Public Health and Safety, who has a connection with the Attorney General's Alliance. We also are working with the United States Pharmacopoeia to develop a joint certification program, or to at least adopt to their verification programs because of their scientific background in the food safety industry. Our program is also getting global recognition. Obviously, we are here talking with your organizations, and we're excited to hopefully find some opportunities to collaborate. We're also working in Latin America and some other regions as well. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the certification program is based off of quality management systems and good manufacturing and laboratory practices. Due to that, your facilities would be verified with scientific backgrounds and audit checks, just to adhere to the industry standards. By leveraging the good manufacturing and laboratory practices, it ensures that your platform or your processes have traceability and are able to track and manage data. The system also minimizes risks and allows facilities such as cultivators, growers, farmers, and producers and laboratories to stay ahead of regulatory requirements. And ultimately, the point of certification is to demonstrate the commitment to consumer health and safety. So as a result of our pilot program, we do have 1 test laboratory certified and 2 producers. And we are in the process of onboarding a few more test laboratories as well. Next slide, please. So not only is our certification program based off of quality management systems and good manufacturing or laboratory practices, but our program is unique because we also have the luxury of using the ASTM standards. As you heard from Jimmy earlier, the D37 committee is very active, and there are many approved standards, and there's many more to come. So right now, our program is based off of 19 specific standards that have been developed and approved by the D37 committee. So not only are we looking at the good manufacturing laboratory practices, but we're also looking at security and surveillance systems, how facilities perform their cleaning and disinfection, the inspection of incoming materials and outgoing product, and raw materials and waste, and how facilities handle design changes and handle complaints and non-compliant products. And then on the test laboratory side, we're looking at sample preparation and test method validation and storage protocols. So all of this leads to, I'm sure that many of you are familiar with ISO 9001 or ISO 17025 for test laboratories. And while those are industry standards, we do recommend that you do that because it ensures that you have good quality management systems in place. But by using the ASTM certification program, we're going above and beyond what those 2 standards require. Our program is very specific about cannabis. And as I mentioned, we're using auditors who come from the cannabis industry. So we are looking at very specific facets of the cannabis industry, in addition to the quality management systems and good manufacturing practices. Next slide, please. So what would it entail to be part of the certification program? All of our participants have to fill out an application, and that application form is pretty comprehensive. It asks a lot of questions about your facility, how large it is, how many staff you have, what certifications you currently have. And this enables us to get a feel for where your facility stands, how large it is, and it helps us determine how many days we would be on site for conducting an audit. We say that a minimum, we will be auditing your facility for 1.5 days. For a laboratory, a minimum of 2 days. And then if your facility is large and quite comprehensive, it may require more days than that. But that is the purpose of the application form. It's just so that we can get familiar with your organization. And then once we onboard you as a participant, we will schedule an on-site comprehensive quality audit. And I'll get more into what the audit will encompass in a few slides. And once you have completed the, not yet, back. So once you have completed the certification process and you have resolved any of the non-compliant findings, we issue certification, and that enables you to use the ASTM certification mark on product packaging. And we also offer a certificate that you can house in your facility. And all of our audits are conducted initially and annually. Now, next slide, please. Great. So the audit for cultivators or growers, farmers, and then the extractors or producers is pretty comprehensive. As we said, we're looking at your quality systems. We're going to look at your personnel and training, buildings and infrastructure, the sanitation. We'll look at all of your equipment and make sure that it's in calibration and up to specification. We look at your control for raw materials and how you store containers and product. We look at how you sample materials, both reference and retention samples. We look at storage and distribution. We look at the manufacture and process controls. We evaluate product labels and packaging just to make sure that there is traceability and there's no chance that packaging or labels could be tampered or destroyed or stolen. We also look at laboratory quality control. That's if you have in-house testing. We look at how you have product release and the traceability of that product. How do you reject or reprocess a product? We look at your records and documentation. And what are your processes for working with contract manufacturers or someone outside, including suppliers? We also look at your process for handling complaints and recalls. And are you conducting internal audit procedures? And then risk assessment tools. Do you have those in place? And how do you validate those? We also look at change control and how do you handle if you're making a change within your manufacturing processes or your grow facility processes or with design of product. And then we look at homogeneity procedures for liquids, creams, and ointments, and then the security and transportation, and then finally the use of the certification mark. So next slide. So on the test laboratory side, we are looking at your quality management system. So a lot of the same things that we look at for the growers or producers, but we're also looking at laboratory controls, and then also what are your procedures are for sample intake, sample storage and preparation, test methodology, test method validation. And because ASTM has the proficiency test program and we have access to reference materials, we incorporate that as part of our certification for test laboratories as well. So we would send a reference or a check material to the laboratory a week prior to the audit, and we would ask that it not be tampered with or opened until we get there. And then the auditor is going to walk through the procedures with the laboratory personnel to make sure that they're trained properly, they're using the equipment as they say. They're just going to basically be going through all of the procedures and verifying that they are being followed correctly, and then that the tests, and then we'll look at the test results at the end to make sure that you are producing reliable and consistent test results. We also look at how you perform routine testing and production testing. We look at the data integrity out of specification procedures, and finally, again, that use of the certification mark. Next slide, please. So these are an example of the different certification marks. So as I said, it is an ASTM certification program. We are, and as I said, SEI is managing that. We are looking at doing different license programs where other ISO 17065 third-party certification organizations could adopt these programs and have the use of this mark too. So I'd be happy to talk to anyone about that. As you can see, there is a value of this certification mark, and we see that there's value in the ASTM because of all the work that is being done and connected with the D37 work that Jimmy told you about. So the mark just signifies that a facility does have quality management systems that are in place. It also signifies that there are strong operating procedures. It ensures that their facility adheres to government regulations, and it ultimately promotes consumer health and safety. Next slide, please. And Jimmy has referenced the website, and I just want to talk about that again. So you can go to astmcannabis.org, and that's where you can find out more information about the certification program, the proficiency test program, the training that Athena talked about. And then there's also a wealth of links and resources from our D37 experts. And there's also a news and events page as well. So I would encourage you to go to that website to find out more information. And please, if you're interested in working with us on the certification program, possibly becoming a license for that, please reach out to me. I think my information was on the what might be on the next slide, actually. Yes, so there's my information. So please feel free to reach out and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Tricia, for your insightful presentation on ASTM SCI certification programs on cannabis and best practices for quality, safety, and compliance, and how can ASTM SCI certification programs strengthen ARSO members' efforts in that regard. I now open the floor for questions. I do have one question, and the question reads, it is forbidden to plant cannabis in Madagascar. Can you help us to have the authorization if we produce cannabis for medicine as an institute of applied research?
I'm sure that we do have some technical experts on the D37 committee that could help with that. So please feel free to send us an email and then I can work with Jimmy to connect you with the right person.
Thank you, Tricia. The next question is, what is the difference between the certification of laboratory scheme you are running and the normal accreditation of labs?
Yes, great question. So typically laboratories do get an ISO 17025 accreditation for good laboratory practices. And what we are doing, we do, so typically when you go through ISO 17025, you're looking at individual test methods and adding those to your accreditation scope. And an auditor will come in and look at your processes. Where ASTM is different is that we are going to be looking at the test methods that are specific for cannabis. We're going to be looking at the sample preparation and the test method validation. So proficiency testing is a big part of that. And we do require that as part of our program, and so does 17025. But where we're going to be different is that we are using those reference materials from our proficiency test program to run through a series of tests. So we're going to make sure that we're touching on all cannabis related tests and not just a selection, a random selection of them. So our program is much more entailed and very focused on cannabis and the nuances of sample preparation for cannabis, because there's a lot of factors that play into that to make sure that you're storing samples properly so that they are not affected and it doesn't affect the content of the product or harm the product. So we like to think that we are going above and beyond the normal accreditation practices.
Thank you very much, Tricia. I do have one more question, and that will be the final question before we move on to the last panelist for today's program. And I think the question is a general question, and it reads, cannabis is a good candidate for new therapeutic molecule research. That's the question. Does cannabis a good candidate for new therapeutic molecule research?
I'm sure that it would be, and I think that's a topic that could be brought to the ASTM D37 standards to see if there is an interest or if there's research and if there should be standards developed for that.
Thank you very much, Tricia. We are going to move on now to the last panelist, as I alluded. And the panelist is Mr. Jim Olszewski, ASTM Director of External Relations. Jim has worked at ASTM International for 23 years, supporting the development and promotion of voluntary consensus standards for materials, products, systems, and services. In 2007, Mr. Olszewski assumed the role of Director of External Relations, as I alluded to, where he helps to facilitate ASTM International outreach within ASTM Global Cooperation Department. Jim, as we call him affectionately, supports ASTM's Memorandum of Understanding program with developing countries, and his work is focused on Latin America, the Caribbean, the Middle East, and he supports my work in Africa as well. So with that, I will hand over to Jim. Jim, I think you're muted. Jim, I don't know if you can hear me, but I think you're muted. Jim, I can't hear you.
I think it's muted.
Okay, I got a note from Jim. It says waiting on host.
Yeah, Maria, you unmuted me, just so you know.
Yes, I did unmute you to see if you can hear Jim, but it looks like Jim is muted. Dan, could you kindly look at the situation or the issue? Let me see if I can unmute Jim.
I've got it now. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Jim.
Okay, good day to everyone. Great to see so many friends and colleagues here on the call today, and appreciate your hanging in there for this lengthy training session today. Dr. Hermogene during his keynote encouraged us to think about ethics, and I think you've had a taste of that already from the presenters that preceded me when we talk about quality management systems, transportation and security in particular, certifying personnel. All these have to do with the ethics of the industry. And ASTM likes to say that we keep the science in and we try to keep the politics out. It's important to point out that ASTM is a not-for-profit private organization, and we develop voluntary consensus standards, but we defer to the appropriate government authorities to determine the legal and regulatory frameworks regarding the control and the use of cannabis. So I just wanted to be clear about ASTM's standpoint on that. Now, with regards to my presentation, I'd like to speak a little bit more to our MOU partners in an effort to inform the national standards bodies and the regional bodies how you can better engage with ASTM International. At ASTM, we're laser focused on meeting the demands of the global stakeholders and on embracing rules and decisions from the members of the World Trade Organization and the guidance that they've carefully articulated concerning the principles for international standards. It's important to point out that the WTO does not call out specific organizations that develop international standards, but rather they've provided guidance in the form of 6 principles in which a standards development organization must comply to develop international standards. And ASTM agrees completely. The standards that meet WTO principles can promote trade and more effective regulation. And you can be rest assured that ASTM complies with all those WTO principles. Next slide, please. In an effort to establish links with the national standards bodies and to tangibly demonstrate ASTM's support of the development dimension, which is one of those WTO principles, ASTM's Memorandum of Understanding program was initiated in 2001. The main goals of the MOU program are to promote communication between ASTM and the national standards bodies, and to foster awareness of standardization systems of all parties involved. And ASTM, for our MOU partners, provides full access to all our standards to the partners annually through a subscription. And so you will have free access to those 34 standards that have already been developed by Committee D37 on cannabis through this MOU agreement. You also have free ASTM Technical Committee membership to anyone, and it's available to any stakeholder in your country, not only from the National Standards Body staff, but any interested stakeholder can join an ASTM Technical Committee for free. All you have to do is contact either myself or Maria, and we'll be happy to provide you with an application that would allow you to join. We provide updates through the MOU program on standards that have already been adopted or referenced by a given standards body. And we also provide training opportunities that I'll talk about in a few minutes. In return, we asked the standards bodies to encourage participation of experts, to use ASTM standards where appropriate, and to provide an annual report to us every year on the use of the ASTM standards. And to date, we've recorded over 8,700 citations, as you see on the screen. Next slide, please. In Africa, we've signed 28 countries now, shown on the slide. Egypt and Zimbabwe were the first NSBs to sign on in 2002, and Burkina Faso is the latest to join the group. So far, SABS in South Africa is the top user of ASTM standards according to the annual reports, followed by the NSBs in Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Mauritius, Ghana, and Nigeria. Next slide, please. In addition to those 28 countries, ASTM's signed 3 regional partners in Africa. And ARSO is by far our key strategic partner in the region. Beyond our webinar on cannabis today, we intend to hold a series of webinars on technical topics of interest later this year in cooperation with ARSO. So in addition to our successful work with ARSO and other key MOU partners, we're also looking to engage more closely with industry organizations and assist in any way that we can with the implementation of the AF-CFTA agreement. Next slide, please. Next, I'd like to just describe some of the unique training that's offered to our ASTM MOU partners. The first of these is the Standards Expert Program. Under the Standards Expert Program, ASTM selects 3 or 4 standards experts from our MOU partners to participate in a 2-week visit to the US to learn more about ASTM, visit with key stakeholders in government and industry, and attend a series of ASTM technical committee meetings. To date, experts participating in the program from ARSO nations include Egypt, Ghana, Mauritius, Nigeria, South America, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. The Technical Visitor Grant Program is very much like the Standards Expert Program, except it's a competitive program in which ASTM pays 50% of the program cost and the attendee is responsible for 50%. In addition, the TVGP program is more technically focused, and it provides more opportunities to research and explore a technical topic. And it would be perfect to have a technical visitor come and study the cannabis industry. Pictured on the slide in the middle is our recent graduate of the 2021 TVGP program, Mauro Cabral from Angola, who came to study petroleum standards. Lastly, ASTM works with other international visitors on a case-by-case basis to host attached staff and other groups. Attached staff are fully funded by the sponsoring organization, and ASTM arranges the attachment program at no cost to the participant. Pictured on the right-hand side of your screen is Winnie Tonwi, who visited ASTM from KEBS to study textile standards. And please note that ASTM is quite open and flexible in working with you to organize a unique program that works for you and your stakeholders. Next slide, please. When considering the ways in which you might be able to use ASTM standards from the cannabis or hemp industry, among others, there are various ways ASTM standards can be adopted and referenced. 6 ways that we've identified are shown here on the screen. They're divided into 2 main categories. Those on the right in orange are methods available for public and private users. Those are referenced in regulation, normative reference, or code reference. Those are by title only. And those on the left, shown in green, are only available for MOU partners. And these include adoptions, identical adoptions, equivalent adoptions, and using as the basis of a national standard or consulted. And for those areas in green, you can use the content of ASTM standards if you're part of our MOU program, because ASTM does copyrighted standards, but we give special permission to our MOU partners. Next slide. And as a result of the MOU program, African countries have cited ASTM standards extensively, as you can see on the slide. Africa's application of ASTM standards comes from almost 90% of ASTM's technical committees. And since ASTM serves over 90 industry sectors, said it another way, Africa is already using standards to address needs in a multitude of sectors: energy, construction, healthcare, consumer products, infrastructure, testing, transportation, just to name a few. ASTM standards are developed by a worldwide community of technical experts, and the content has been vetted by these global stakeholders, and they can fast forward Africa's position on the learning curve. Standards bodies can now use resources that would be applied to standards development for other activities, such as compliance and education. MOU partners in Africa have special permission and privilege to use ASTM standards to meet their national needs, and we hope that you'll take advantage of the wealth of resources already developed for the cannabis and hemp industries. Next slide. Just as I close my presentation, I've included a question here from the concept note that was circulated. How can we safely manage cannabis through standardization, testing, and certification to minimize negative social impact and maximize the economic benefits that countries can realize through growing, processing, and marketing of these products in international markets? As African countries begin to rethink their cannabis cultivation laws and how they can take advantage of this market, ASTM stands ready with the resources that can help. So thank you all for your kind attention. It's always a pleasure working with ARSO and its members on these topics of mutual interest. And I'll turn it back to Maria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim, for sharing with the audience our flagship program, the Memorandum of Understanding program, and also for emphasizing our fruitful engagement in Africa, particularly with ARSO, our key strategic partner in the region, as you said, by far, and I couldn't agree more. So we are coming towards the end of our workshop today, but before I give the floor to Mrs. Otter, Caroline Otter, for the closing remarks, I have two questions for Jim that came through the chat. The first one is, may you give some emphasis about identical and equivalent adoptions? So maybe Jim, if you could briefly touch on that. And also, what is the procedure to be part of the training? What should be fulfilled? Jim, are you? I think Jim is muted again. Let me see.
Okay, here I am. Sorry about that. The two questions were about the adoptions and about the training. The difference between identical adoption and a modified adoption is fairly straightforward. An identical adoption means that you've taken the ASTM standard, all of its parts and text, and you've adopted it identically. We do require that you make it look as if it's a standard from your national standards body, and we have some specific rules about the formatting that I won't get into here, but you can certainly ask me about offline. A modified adoption means that you have some deviations. Perhaps in your country, there needs to be some deviation to the ASTM standard. And so you would list those in a table or a chart on one of the cover pages that you've adopted the ASTM standard, a modified version, and the deviations are listed in that table or chart on one of the opening pages. In terms of the training programs that we offer for the Standards Expert Program, ASTM takes a look at what countries are most active in working with us, and we select the participants based on those that are most active, who have been corresponding with us perhaps, who have adopted a number of standards, and we select those on an annual basis, and we try to spread that around because we do have 120 MOU partners. We usually ask the standards body who's selected to provide 2 candidates, and then we interview them and select one out of the 2 to participate. With the TVGP, it's an application process, which you can grab from our website or I can send to you. And the applications are reviewed, the candidates are interviewed, and it's determined who will serve as a technical visitor. And then lastly, I'll just point out that we do have the flexibility to work with you. If you want to bring a group of stakeholders to study cannabis, for example, we'll work with you to arrange that group to come. Typically, those groups are sponsored by the national standards body or the government from the country.
Thank you very much, Jim, for that answer, or the answers to those 2 questions are very pertinent questions, and I'm grateful that the audience asked and you were able to answer them properly. Now, I would like to encourage everyone to answer or share their thoughts about a question that was posed on the chat. And the question is, do you think that standardizing the cannabis will definitely protect the negative health impact and misuse of the drug? So I'll leave that on the chat so that we use the time that we have left properly. So I would like to now invite Ms. Caroline Otter to give the closing remarks. And I will say a few words about Mrs. Caroline Otter, who's been very instrumental in meeting with us since we had the last workshop 6 months ago. So Mrs. Otter is a conformity assessment expert. She has been involved in conformity assessment since 1999. She is the current vice chair of ARSO, CASCO, C-A-S-C-O, and a member of ARSO CASCO Chairman's Policy Committee. In addition, Mrs. Otter is a lead assessor and trainer for ARSO 17021, among other ARSO committees. She is the current chair of African Organization of Standardization Conformity Assessment Committee, in short, ARSO CACO, which is made up of members from 21, I believe 21 or 27 countries, as Dr. Emogene alluded to on the chart. I stand corrected on that. And she's a member of the National Quality Institute, the American Society of the Quality, and the Kenya Institute of Management. So with that, I would like to ask Mrs. Otter to take the floor. Do we have Ms. Otter? Please unmute me. Okay. Then could you quickly unmute Ms. Otter?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you
very much. Thank you very much, Maria. Sorry about that. I wasn't able to unmute. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. As you have heard, my name is Caroline, and representing in this meeting, ARSO CACO. I wish to thank you most sincerely, Maria, and the team from ASTM, because we are the ones who asked for this workshop. to be held in order to provide information for CACO members that wanted to make certain decisions with regard to the tools for conformity assessment for cannabis for use within the continental free trade area. And we just needed the information in order to do so. I wish to assure members that I am, on behalf of CACO, quite satisfied with the information that has been given to us. And I feel now that ASTM can be a valuable partner for us as CACO as we move forward to create the conformity assessment tools and procedures that will make it possible for us to trade cannabis within the continent, initially for medicinal purposes, and then later on, we see what else we can do with regards to cannabis. I think it is obvious to members attending this workshop that the concerns we have are about regulation of cannabis in several countries within the continent. We do not have very many countries that have legalized cannabis, even for use for medicinal purposes. And these are the things that we as a committee will be battling with. However, within the context of the free trade area, we are committed as ARSO CACO to make sure that whoever needs to trade in these products or for medicinal purposes actually has the means to do so. I was very impressed by the presentations, and I wish to once again thank ASTM for providing these, especially with regard to the certification schemes and processes that exist under 17065 like certifications, as well as the certification, quote unquote, of labs. The reason I'm saying quote unquote is because though you have indicated it as certification, it looks a lot stricter than accreditation, and yet there are accreditation people in the room who think that accreditation is the highest and strictest form of conformity assessment. And so it's very interesting to me, for instance, that you insist on before you approve a lab, that you must confirm that they are proficiency, that you must undertake a proficiency testing on the lab before it can be approved. So this is very interesting, and I am quite sure that we as ARSO CACO can learn a lot from ASTM, and we will be willing partners moving forward. Before I exit, I just wanted to, we've discussed this before in meetings between STM and ourselves. Ultimately, we as ARSO CACO would like to be able to build our own capacity. Our experience is that depending entirely on conformity assessment services from outside the continent tends to be expensive, and we hope that with the STM partnership, we would be able to build a capacity within the continent to be able to undertake the conformity assessment services that are currently being offered by ASTM within the continent, with an arrangement between ASTM and ourselves. This is our ultimate goal, really, because we do want to provide this conformity assessment tools and services to our members within the continent at prices that they can afford. And also we want to make sure that we have sustainability for all the activities that we undertake in conformity assessment within the continent. I wish to thank all the members of CACO who have come into this meeting. We made it open that they can bring all the members of their organization and of their industry and regulators as well. And I've seen quite a good showing from our members. And I just wish to acknowledge this and thank you all for making this workshop, webinar, a success. I wish to hand back to Maria while emphasizing that we are really grateful as ARSO CACO for this webinar that you have facilitated very well and has given us a lot of good information in order for us to create the tools that needs to be created to trade across the continent. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much to you too, Ms. Caroline Otter, for your closing remarks. I think they were very powerful words there. And above all, I'm grateful that you map the way forward for further collaboration between our institutions. We have now reached the end of our workshop, but before we close officially, I would like to thank first and foremost Dr. Imogen Sengemana for expressing great interest 6 months ago, really, for this collaboration, which led to today's event. I also wish to personally thank Mr. Charles Gachai, a technical expert at ARSO, CACO, and Mr. Dan Kitomi, the technical person at ARSO who made this possible and who worked tirelessly with us, with me in particular, at odd hours to ensure that this event was a success. Last but not least, I would like to thank the presenters and all the participants for a very fruitful ASTM ARSO stakeholder workshop on medicinal cannabis production certification in Africa. As we learned today, improving quality while maintaining health and safety is key to the cannabis industry growth. And standards accompanied by conformity assessment activities and capacity building are fundamental to assuring that these products meet their intended performance. I hope this workshop serves as a catalyst for closer collaboration between ASTM and its MOU partners, ARSO CACO members, and regional standard bodies in making medicinal cannabis a key industry in Africa, just like Latin America, Europe, and the US have been doing. As I alluded on the onset of my intervention, and I think it's a good time to put my camera on now. As I alluded in the onset of my presentation, both the slides as well as the recording for this session will be made available to you in a day or two. So bear with us as we put that together to convey to you. Before we close, I would like to ask everyone to turn their cameras on so that we can snap a screenshot that we can proudly share on Facebook and other social media outlets. It's good to see everybody now.
So then you're responsible for the snapshot. I don't see Dr. Imogen. Dan, can you hear me? Well, I don't see Dan. I am going to attempt to take that snapshot. Let's try one more attempt. Okay. We have taken a lot of your time. I've attempted to take a snap of this screenshot. I hope it worked. And I thank you once again for being here, and thank you for participating. I think the questions were very pertinent. And if there was any question unanswered, please feel free to email me directly. My email is mjivaraj, as you see my last name on the screen, at astm.org. I will send that on the chat quickly. And I just have to wish you a very, very pleasant day. And I look forward to the next event that will be together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. Bye.
Thank you very much.